Magandang araw po sa ating lahat. Good day to all of us. Ako po si Deborah Garcia and welcome to this series of lessons where you will learn not just the theories and form of the language but also the function and the usage. But before we start our discussion, I just want to say thank you to you all because for the first time I checked the statistics of my channel and I found out that I have 829 returning viewers and I have a lot of new viewers. But the sad thing is 73% of my viewers are not subscribed to my channel. So I know you guys are very excited to check out the lesson for today, but please don't forget to click the subscribe button. In the previous lesson, I discussed to you the difference between ka and ikaw, which are both you, the personal you, singular in English. Today, I am going to discuss to you another form of you, singular, which is kita, in the context of see versus look versus watch. In Tagalog, we say kita versus tingin versus nood. So see is kita, that's the root verb, kita. Look is tingin and watch is nood. If you notice in my previous lessons, if I use watch or nood, which is the TV, which is always being used when you are referring to watching TV or watching movies. But here we are going to use it in a different sentence. So just like in English, I wrote here the sentences in English first, and then we are going to compare to the Filipino translation of them so that we would know when to use see or look or watch in English and if it's the same usage as when you say it in Filipino. So in the first sentence we say Ben saw Betty. I chose to use the past form of the verbs because if you notice when we conjugate verbs in Filipino, the longest format is with the future tense and then with the present tense, but usually for the past tense, it's always the root verb and then one affix, right? So this one, Ben saw Betty. In Tagalog, we say nakita ni Ben si Betty. Number 2, Ben looked at Betty. In Filipino, tiningnan ni Ben si Betty. Third one, Ben watched Betty. In Tagalog, pinanood ni Ben si Betty. Before we go to the analysis of the sentence construction format in Filipino, let us check first if the usage of see, look, and watch in English is the same as when you use it in Tagalog, because they're saying that because I checked what's the difference of these three, can you interchange the usage of them? And then in the answer in Google, it says that you cannot, because in English, if you use the verb see, it means that the subject or the one doing the action is unintentionally doing the action. Like it's just there. For example, this one, Ben saw Betty. Maybe Ben is not really intending to stare at Betty, but Betty passed by maybe. So, and then Ben just saw Betty. So there was no intention. In look, when you say look, it's said there that the subject is intentionally, it's exerting effort to do the action. So Ben is intentionally staring at Betty. That's why Ben looked at Betty. So Betty did not just pass by. Ben really wanted to look at Betty. So that's how it's being used. Now, for the watch, Betty, you use watch when the receiver of the action watch or see or look, if the receiver of the action is moving. So Ben watched Betty, maybe Betty is walking, changing position. That's how it was explained in English. But if I am going to translate this in Filipino, actually, I realize that it doesn't matter. For Filipinos, we are not very particular with the use of see, look, and watch. we often say watch if we are watching movies or TVs or game, right? But then sometimes when our teacher, I just remember my teacher, when the students are noisy, the teacher would say, "Hey, nakikita ko kayo." So in English, the translation would be, "Hey, I'm seeing you," or "I can see you," or "I can see what you're doing." So we are moving, right? Or the students are moving or doing something naughty. So the teacher would still use kita, nakita ko kayo, or tinitingnan ko kayo. If the teacher would use tingin, it's the same. Or if the teacher would say, "Hey, pinanonood ko kayo." So it doesn't matter. But in English, it's stricter, I would say. So now that we learn that it doesn't matter which one you use in Filipino, that part is easy, but this one is the hard part. It is the conjugation of the verbs. So if you notice here in the first sentence, in the translation of the verb saw, nakita, this is the past tense, you can identify the root verb, right? It's kita. This one, tingin, we actually use, you can hardly see the root verb here, the tingin. It's because it's conjugated this way, but the root verb here is tingin. And then here, you can easily see the root verb, that's nood. There are other conjugation of these verbs depending still on the focus of the sentence. It is complicated because in English, your subject is the subject. Betty is the object or the receiver of the action. But as I said in the previous lesson, when our sentences are like this, there is a subject and there is an object. The subject or the doer of the action is not always the focus of the sentence. Most of the time, the object can be the subject as well because it is the focus of the sentence. What will be your clue so that you would know which one is the focus? Usually, if there are names of people like Betty, we always use this personal topic maker C. You don't have this in English because in English it's fixed. Subject is subject and that's the doer of the action. The receiver or the object is the one receiving the action. But in here, the reason why we conjugated our verb like this is because in these three sentences, Ben is the doer of the action, but Ben is not the focus, but Betty. This kind of verb conjugation would also give you the clue that the receiver is the focus of the sentence. I am going to show you the comparison of the verb conjugations in the next slide. Alright, to give you the idea of how the conjugations would look like if the focus of the sentence is the object and if the focus of the sentence is the subject or the doer of the action, I wrote these conjugations here. So our first verb is the si, nakita. We used the first pattern of conjugation in our sentence earlier. Nakita ni Ben si Betty, right? So we used this past tense, nakita. So actually this verb is the ma verb. Now, you can also use the mag, the prefix mag, if you want to conjugate it if your focus is the doer of the action. So we say magkikita, nagkikita, nagkita. By the way, the format is future, present, past. Okay? So, but if I am going to use this format, the mag verb for the sentence earlier, it would mean that Ben and Betty are seeing each other or saw each other. So Ben and Betty saw each other. So it's in the past tense. So nagkita. So I would say nagkita si Ben at si Betty. So now the focus, the si, comes before the names Ben and Betty. But the original sentence in English was Ben was the one who saw Betty. That's why I cannot translate it, or I cannot Yeah, I cannot translate it using this particular format or this conjugation. So, kita, if you're going to use this format, the ma format, which is when it becomes past, it would become na, ma becomes na, then the focus of this one is the receiver of the action. If you're going to use this format, this conjugation, then it means that the focus is the doer of the action, the subject. It's the same here. Number 2, I know this verb is complicated because of the conjugation here. You can hardly see the root verb, the root word. So tingin, if in the future tense you would say titingnan, and then present tinitingnan, and past tense tiningnan, so it means the one looking is not the focus but the object that he is looking at, which is in our sentence it was Betty. So but if you are going to use the verb, because remember in the conjugation of the verb, the is not present in the future tense. We just repeat the first syllable. Then, if you use tumingin, titingin, tumitingin, and tumingin, it's the same explanation. The one looking is the focus. So, I am looking at this. Tumitingin ako sa marker. Tumitingin ako sa marker. I am looking at the marker. So, you are going to use this format. But, if I would say, tinitingnan ko ang marker. If we are going to use tinitingnan, it's the same. In English, it's the same. I am looking at the marker. But if you are going to translate that in Tagalog and you want the marker to be the focus of your sentence, then I would say, tinitingnan ko ang marker. Now, the marker is the focus of my sentence, not me, the one that's looking to the marker. Okay? So, number 3, noon. Same explanation. We used this format. The conjugation is pinanood. That's what we had in our sentence earlier. So, pinanood ni Ben si Betty. So, Ben watched Betty. So, it's the same. But you can also conjugate it this way. If you want Ben to become the focus, then you would say, nanood si Ben kay Betty. Nanood si Ben. So Ben is the focus. You have the clue there. The C is placed before Ben's name. So nanood si Ben kay Betty. Alright, now I prepared 3 sentences for you again using these verbs. But this time we are going to use kita. Kita is another version of the word you, singular, in English. So last time we discussed ikaw and ka. Today we are going to use kita. So I don't have to explain what these sentences mean because we are using the same verb. So, but we are just changing the subject and the object. Look at this. I see you. Nakikita kita. Present tense. I am looking at you, present tense, tinitingnan kita. And then, I am watching you, pinapanood kita. Now, kita, as I said, it's you, right? Nakikita, this is the verb, tinitingnan, and pinapanood. Now, where is the I? Where is the I in the translation? I in Filipino is ako, right? But then, do you see ako here? No. Why? Because kita is only used when the doer of the action is talking directly to the receiver of the action. So what is the most popular Tagalog phrase that you know? How do you say I love you in Tagalog? I love you is mahal kita. Mahal is love. Kita is you. Love you. So where's the I? There's no I because I am already talking to the person I am saying I love you at. So I would say kita. Mahal kita. That is in conversational Filipino because if you are going to translate or convert these Tagalog sentences into formal written Filipino where you are going to use I or the auxiliary verb I. So you would say ikaw, I, nakikita ko. So, ikaw ay nakikita ko. Nakikita, we kept the same verb format, nakikita. So it means the object is still the focus of the sentence. We kept it, but we converted it, or we converted it into formal written Filipino. Now look at what happened to the ako, the I. Where is it now? It's in here. It's in the last, because when you use ko and not ako is I. That's the exact translation of the word I, ako. But then you only use ako when you are the speaker and you are the focus of the sentence. But in this translation, in this verb conversion or conjugation, it's not the speaker who is the focus, right? It's the object. So that's why when we translate it into formal written Filipino, the subject became last because it's not the focus. Ikaw, which is you, is still the focus of the sentence. If you're wondering how are we going to convert this one into formal written Filipino, then it would be ikaw ay tinitingnan ko. And this one is ikaw ay pinapanood ko. It's the same format there. The speaker is not the focus of the sentence. And that is all for today. I hope you learned something. Please do not forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Also, for the previous series where I made 18 lessons, if you want to make some exercises, if you want to do some practice to those lessons are now available at Gobi Languages. If you're using your iPhone, download Gobi Languages. And if you're using Android, or if you want to go to their website, you can just type www.gobilanguages.com. I hope to see you again in the next lesson. Bye!